Hello, my friends, and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. I don't know how familiar you are with Dmitry Medvedev, the former prime minister and um, president of Russia, the Russian Federation. But he appeared to be a mild and subdued individual under Vladimir Putin's strong and whatever will and powerful hand that he's got over whole Russia. Medvedev was considered even by the Western media and politicians to be the most pro-Western leader at the Kremlin. That means you could discuss with him and he was the flexible one and so on. Lately, the circumstances obviously changed after this Russia Ukraine special operation invasion war, however we want to call it. And Medvedev started making certain statements as response to Western leaders' attacks or statements, directed towards Russia. And Medvedev's are surprisingly very pointed and very direct, and they're not mild or balanced. So he surprised me with his pointed answers and straightforward answers, courageous answers, I would say. So let's see this article coming from Ukrainska Pravda from yesterday, June 30th. This is what Mr. Medvedev said, and I'm reading the title. Medvedev says Western sanctions against Russia may be grounds for war. So that means the fact that European Union and whoever placed sanctions on Russia could take that as a declaration of war and they will react. Now that's very dangerous, but that's at least one precedent to that. And I will mention that precedent by reminding you of that country called Japan. And we bring back everything in 1930s and early 40s, 1940s, when you probably know that everything escalated in December 1941 when the Japanese Air Force attacked Pearl Harbor, which was not part of the United States. It was a United States territory at that time. So the United States was actually not attacked per se, as they say. That's the fact. It's not like they would attack now Hawaii or Pearl Harbor area, and that would be yes, Russian, not yet. American territory, United States, their land, country belongs to it. It was a territory at that time. Nevertheless, it was then a surprise attack on the United States fleet, trying to play a second Tsushima attack, like they did in 1904 with. Japan was an imperialist power in the 20s, 30s, and they started actually after they were opened up by Commodore Perry in 1968, right? That's 1969 when they opened up Japan with the cannons in the, I think it was Yokohama harbor, if I remember correctly. Nevertheless, they restored the Meiji, and it was called the Meiji Restoration. They put the emperor back in place. They took care of the military leaders, the shogun. They came out, put the emperor in place. And nevertheless, they became imperialistic. They attacked whomever they got, and they attacked China. They created a new country over there, Manchukuo in Manchuria. They installed their own puppet government and blah, blah, blah. They committed a lot of crimes, and we know that. Now, Japan developed economically in those times and became a powerhouse in the area. Now you have United States being the powerhouse over there and Japan competing to one another. And the thing is like this United States was the good one considered, but the other one was considered the bad one. The problem is they were both, let's use you know, certain words here. They were both slave owners or masters, but one was considered a good master and the other one was considered a bad master for whatever reason, but they were still masters of slaves in a way that one of them had to disappear, but they both had the same intention of being the bosses of the area. So they were them. It's like you're a slave and you say, "Oh, my master is a good master," and anyone, "Oh, my master is a bad master," but you're still a slave. So don't forget that. So it doesn't matter if that's a good master, quote unquote, or a bad master, quote unquote. You're still a master and you're a slave. So that's the bottom line. So how about no master? So nevertheless, the United States told the other one, "Hey, guy, Japan, you cannot buy certain products and the natural resources from this area where we have a sphere of influence." Now, Japan doesn't have a natural resources, so it needs lands where they can get them if they can for free, and which they did. So they challenged Japan over there in East Asia. Now, Japan obviously did not like that a bit, so what they do, I said, "I'm going to knock them out." Remember, they talked about this many times, Japan and the United States, regarding all this. And the United States did not want to hear anything about it. When the Pearl Harbor attack occurred, the Japanese delegation discussing these things was leaving the presidential's office, or whatever they were at that time in Washington, D.C. So Japan was still in Washington, D.C., dealing with this, trying to get to an understanding. And this guy said no, and I think in about, I can't remember how many minutes, the command was made to boom and Pearl Harbor occurred. It was a coincidence or not, I don't know, and I don't care. The fact is, Japan was pushed to the same limits this guy is talking about here. Let's see how he argues his point. Dmitry Medvedev, deputy head of the Security Council of the Russian Federation, said that Western sanctions against Russia could be perceived as an act of international aggression and even as a casus belli, an act of situation that provokes or justifies a war. A Kremlin-aligned Russian news outlet, quoting Medvedev during the plenary of the 10th St. Petersburg International Legal Forum, quoted him, and I'm quoting him straight now, the quote. "I would like to point out once again that under certain circumstances, such enemy actions could be perceived as an act of international aggression and even as a casus belli. In response, the state has a right to individual and collective self-defense." Details. Medvedev claimed that the boorish and cynical practice of unilateral restrictive measures against Russia, this is to say sanctions, but they make it nicer, whose illegality has been time and time again stressed on all levels, is akin, as our opponents themselves put it, on declaration of economic war. Well, this is what Medvedev said. Reference, for 8 years Russia, okay, this is now the cover-up. Every time you read an article from the Western mass media, and that's a common practice, they tell you, the bulk the bulk of the article talks about the title, and then the end of it is a cover. It's a damage control portion when they destroy whatever they said, and they tell you what to believe, because our brain, as I said many times, functions like this. Remembers the end of the story or the beginning of the story, not the middle. So there you have it. They give the middle as what the guy said, and at the end they tell you, yeah, but Russia's are the bad guys. Russia invaded Ukraine. Russia did war crimes. Russia, and when you leave this, you don't even remember what Medvedev said. You remember only the last part. Oh, Russia invaded. Russia did this. So they're the bad guys. Typical. That's what it is. That's what it is. And it says here previously, Medvedev has said that there are 4 scenarios in which Russia might use nuclear weapons, including an act of aggression against Russia or its allies, which would threaten the existence of the country. Medvedev later stated that sanctions against Russia might count as an act of aggression by Western countries. So you know where that's going, right? Medvedev also declared that NATO's pumping of weapons into Ukraine increases the likelihood of a full-scale nuclear war. I totally agree with him, I have to say. Could it lead to that? Yeah, I mean, if, let's say, my neighbor doesn't let me go and buy groceries from the store and my children are dying, what do you think I'm going to do? Do you think, I mean, if I'm a weak individual, I'm going to lay down and die here and we're going to starve together. I'm going to eat my children or something and so on, no? Right? That's what weak people do. Or not weak, abnormal people do. A normal human being will have the self-preservation instinct, and the response would be, I'm going to you up. That's what I'm going to do. Even if I get punched in the meantime, I will die here. So what can you offer me worse than that? You can only match my future situation here, which is death. That's all you can do. But I have many other options, maybe limited, but they are over there, and probabilities and possibilities. So yeah, I will take on the neighbor if my children die, regardless if I even don't think I'm going to win. But I have maybe a chance. There are chances all the time. The same if you see I don't know, a boxing champion and a guy who's not a boxing champion. Let's say he's an average guy. Yeah, you can bet your money on the champion because most likely the probabilities that this guy is going to win. But that guy always have one punch. He's going to have a punch. That could destroy the whole thing. The same here. You never know what's happening. So yeah, I think Medvedev is making some statements that could lead to an attack on I think these are just threats, to be honest with you. I don't think they will follow through. But if the Russian economy and its Russian citizens will get really affected by the sanctions, I think they could do this. But I don't think they will do it because they form their own club with China, India, Brazil, South Africa, and Argentina, probably North Korea, Iran already there on the BRICS Foundation, BRICS countries foundation. So yeah, I don't think it's going to get there, but it might get if things don't solve in Ukraine the way Russia wants them to be solved. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just.